horse racing fans. This week's episode of Bourbon and Horses, I'm going to talk to you about Stymie. Stymie was a racehorse in the 1940s that was claimed for just $1,500 as a 2-year-old. Stymie was developed into a handicap champion and a popular idol during that time. He was known for his come from the cloud charges and his high head carriage. He was tough, very durable, super classy. Stay tuned to get the full story on Stymie. So at the beginning of his career, Stymie struggled like most horses do in their 2-year-old season. His owner and trainer kind of were putting him in any race possible, trying to get the horse claimed. It's third time out in a claiming race. Stymie was claimed by Hirsch Jacobs for just $1,500 for Hirsch's wife. Jacobs had a phenomenal eye for racehorses at the time. He kind of looked for the horses that weren't getting very much respect, that weren't doing what he thought was up to their potential. So he kind of had that ability to spot those latent abilities in runners whose owners had given up on him and then finding them for a cheap price at the time. He was known as the voodoo veterinarian of his time, just for basically restoring bad leg horses into consistent winners during his 45 years as a trainer. Stymie would normally carry his head high as he ran, and that kind of gave him that significant come from behind or come out of the clouds race style. When every time that he would launch from the back of the pack, people knew that he was making his run towards the front just by the way he was carrying himself during the races. He ran top races all over, as little as a mile, but preferred longer distance just from that come from behind distance. He had more ground to make up there. It was a classic one-run stayer. He reportedly had a very difficult disposition as a youngster, partly due to the excessive fear of people. He didn't like the big crowds. So that was one thing that Hirsch really worked on, was kind of training the horse to deal with the crowd noises, and to kind of get that fear of the noise out of the horse. He of course he became more professional as he matured, like most horses do. He was a little bit tough, but he would always deliver a big effort for his connections. He was described as a horse with the utmost courage on the track. Never backed down from any horse that he went up against. As his 2-year-old career continued and his 3-year-old career began, Stymie continued to struggle to find the winner's circle. But Hirsch never really gave up on the horse, and he continued to train him as hard as he possibly could. He would place in several handicap races along his way, including a second in the Wood Memorial and third in the Gallant Fox, which he would later come back and win later in his career. Although he was stakes placed at 2 and 3, Stymie did not win a stakes race until his 60th lifetime start. In today's world, a lot of horsers wouldn't even give the chance 60 starts to win a stakes race before maybe moving on to something else. He only won 7 of his first 50 starts. So then again, you don't see a lot of horses with that many starts and that few of a wins just sticking it out. So they got a 7-month layoff or a 7-month rest enforced by wartime suspension during this time. So all of American horse racing kind of had this 7-month layoff. However, it would pay off great dividends for Stymie in the long run. He would come off of this layoff with a vengeance. He would go on and win 28 of his remaining 81 starts, with basically going against some high-level competition at the time. His consistency showed during that season was remarkable. In 19 races, he failed to hit the board only twice. So, I mean, great numbers there. 17 out of 19 definitely hitting the board. His 9 total wins on that year was 1 in an overnight handicap against top competition in the land. That earned him a champion handicap horse honors in the United States for that year as well. After 2 years of languishing as a hard-knocking horse with some potential, that potential had come to fruition. So that's why they always say patience has its virtues. Horse coming from $1,500 claimer, not winning very many starts as a 2 or 3-year-old, and then boom, 4-year-old season comes and he's wiping the slate clean with wins. He had 131 lifetime starts. He won 35 of those, placed in 33, and showed in 28. And his career earnings were just over 900,000, and that made him at the time the richest racehorse in America. One of the special facts of Stymie at Suffolk Downs on July 7th, 1947, he became the first horse ever to eclipse the $700,000 earning mark. That was a little bit earlier before he hit the 900,000. He was so heavily bet that a minus show bet of 25,000 was created that day, and the tote board jammed due to the flood of money that was wagered on him as being one of the top earners of his time. So Stymie would go into retirement, like I said before, with the top earnings in America at that time, with the $918,000 earning. However, he would be outdone by Citation, who surpassed him in 1951. The money that Stymie was able to earn for his trainer, Hirsch Jacobs, allowed them to buy a farm in Maryland, which they named Stymie Manor in his honor. Stymie did not stand stud there, though. He began his stud career at Haygeard Farm in Kentucky. Stymie would go on to stud many horses in his time. He would pass away in 1962 at Haygeard, but had spent 6 years at Sunny Slope Ranch in California before his return to Haygeard. He had what to be called an average stud career in his time, just getting 12 stakes winners from a total of 214 named foals. He did get 167 winners, and each would go on to do great things in their careers. Few racehorses have had the fan following that Stymie enjoyed. His race style was one of that you don't see normally now. That just brought the fans to their feet back in the 1940s that they weren't even accustomed to seeing. Definitely one that came from well back with one long, sweeping, powerful run at the leaders. Just a great horse to watch back in that time. And every now and then we get lucky enough to see one of those run in a big race for us here today, and we as horse racers love it as well. So this type of racing does not always win, but it does sure add to the excitement of the race. So when we see those closers or those come from the cloud horses, we definitely enjoy that race much more than anything else. So he did race an astonishing 131 times, which is just an incredible number for a racehorse, winning 35 of those. He retired as the leading money earner at his point in time. He took his time to be good and became one of the great handicap horses of all time. In today's racing industry, horses that don't turn a profit early on really never have a chance to develop, or trainers and owners really never let them have a chance to develop like Stymie did. So that's kind of why the saying goes, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. So always pay attention. You never know what kind of horse you have. Patience is a must because the reward is always great. Thanks for following this week, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed my history on Stymie, the horses from the clouds. Thanks.